Good morning and welcome to Friday morning's breakfast webinar. I'm really excited that you're here. I'm Karen Williams. Welcome everybody. I'm playing a bit of music for us to get our energy going this morning. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation and we'll get started as everyone's jumping on. So welcome, hello, thank you for being here early on a Friday morning. Thank you for investing in yourself, using your energy and your time to learn and grow as a leader and as a leader of your life, maybe a leader in your business and maybe in your organisation. So thank you for being here. Let me know who's here as everyone's jumping on. Good morning. Hi, Jazz. Nice to see you. Michael, good morning. Nat, good morning. Thank you for being here. All right, let me turn that off. Let me see who's here. So Friday morning, hey, Melbourne lockdown. There's been some ups and downs, hasn't there? Wherever you're coming from, around the country, around the globe, we've had some challenges, haven't we? So I don't even know where we are in lockdown anymore. So I'm just getting on with things. So Lisa's here. Good morning. Wendy, good morning. Jackie, hello. Jack, nice to see you. Thank you for being here. Alison, nice to see you. Alison, I do this every day, even if it's just to entertain myself. No, I find it really helps me making that effort, even though I'm not walking out my door in the morning. So it helps with the energy. Maria, good morning. Caitlin, hi. Tracy, nice to see you. Claire, thank you for being here. Hi, Jen. Thank you all for jumping on. So this is I was really and have been really looking forward to having this conversation with you today about conflict and staying confident in conflict. And it's so convenient that I have a recent personal example that I can draw from, which absolutely inspired this conversation today. So I look forward to sharing with you the process that I took myself through to help you be confident and stay confident in conflict. And when I was creating the title, I was thinking about whether it's be confident or stay confident, because I know some people don't feel confident even from the start. So stay confident is even a stretch for us sometimes, isn't it? So we want to even just learn how to be confident as a first step. So I hear you wherever you're at inside these challenging, courageous conversations, then wherever you're at, it's perfectly fine. And today, if you've got your notebook and hopefully, ready to scribble some notes and take some things down, which I'll share with you shortly, then you'll gain real value for how you can show up differently, or the way that you really want to show up next time when maybe conflict is coming at you, or you find yourself in the midst of it unintentionally. So that's the conversation we'll be having today. And good morning. Nice to see you. Thank you for being here. Tanya, thank you for being here. I'm glad you got the link. Elizabeth, good morning, Elizabeth. And Vicky, hello, good morning. Thank you for being here. So today, as this community is a community that does the work. And so this is a space for you to reflect. So take that time to honestly look and see where's your opportunity for growth? Where's your new space to lean into? Sometimes that can be so difficult. I found that very difficult for myself recently, especially when we hold ourselves to a high standard. Yes. And I know that you would all be the same. We expect a lot of ourselves. We commit to things and we have conversations that challenge ourselves and other people to keep elevating our level of performance or our level of thinking, our willingness to engage and collaborate. So when we come up against a challenge within ourselves, it's not always easy to face, isn't it? But this is a space for you to do that, to reflect, take some notes, maybe ask some questions. I need to let you know and remind you that in your chat box, you'll have an option to choose either everyone or all panelists and all attendees or something like that is very inclusive. And so I'd love you to change your chat box setting to the everyone or the all attendees, because what that means is if I miss a comment, then everyone else gets the benefit of your sharing anyway. And I have found for this community that you really enjoy the sharing of each other. Now, one thing about that is we don't give advice to each other. Okay, advice is cheap. We share from our own personal experience about what we learned, what we went through and what our insights are. And whoever is ready to pick that up will pick it up. but we don't give advice to each other. So as you're sharing in the chat box, feel free to share your questions and also sharing from your own experience, as opposed to giving advice to what others should do. Even though it's well-intentioned, it's not very helpful. So I invite you to take that on, and thank you for doing that in advance. So I look forward to your sharing and questions in the chat box. So welcome to those people who haven't been here before. My name's Karen Williams. I'm a transformational coach. I've been doing this work for a couple of decades, and my team and I now work with leaders and teams in organisations and business around communication, collaboration, working really well together, building trust, having those difficult conversations. So I do pride myself on walking my talk. I've trained in this, I've learnt this, I've practiced this for a long time, but I promise you there's always another layer. And for yourself, if you're willing to lean into that, there's new growth and new opportunity through that. And through the other side, so much richness, clarity, power. And for myself, recently I've experienced a whole new breakthrough, right, in my ability to feel empowered and really clear and owning my space. So that's what I really want for you as well, your next level of that. All right, so thank you everyone for sharing and saying hello. It's really nice for you to do that. So welcome if you're here for the first time. If you're here because you've been here many times before, and I know some of you have, I honour and acknowledge you for continuing to show up, continuing to bring yourself to these conversations. And even if you take one thing, then that's brilliant. That's a time well invested for your growth, for who you are, for yourself as a person, maybe as a parent, as a partner, and as a leader, of course. So well done you for continuing to show up and having these conversations. So my vision is a community, an ever expanding community of women in leadership. And these sessions are designed for women in leadership, but we also welcome men and people who identify as female or male. We are very inclusive, and I look forward to all of your comments and conversations. And my vision, my specific vision, is about empowering women to own their space, own their voice, and then have a ripple effect across their business and organisations, everybody around their family, having that ripple effect in who they are as a parent or a brother or sister or son or daughter, and also in their community. So to me, that's an exciting vision to get out for every day. And so my team and I, as I said, we work with leaders in Business 101 and also in groups and in teams. So if you'd like to know more about that, feel free to reach out anytime. So I've told you about the chat box, so please make sure that you change your settings in the chat box to everybody so we can all see. So I'm going to share with you the 3 things we'll be jumping into today. And so as you know, we talk about thinking, we talk about what are we going to do today and what are you going to leave with, yeah? The link to access is not working, Wendy says. Okay, so Nat, would you mind having a look at that and seeing if we can offer any advice there? Hi, Robin, lovely to see you. I've mentioned the link to access is not working. I'm not sure what that means. But let us know, Wendy, if I need to do anything about that. Not sure that I can, but Nat might be able to. So today we're going to think about what happens for you in conflict. Where do you go? Do you shrink up and shut down and withdraw and not say anything? Is that your go-to? Or do you push and push back and fight, pretending not to fight maybe, right? Pretending to keep it all handled, but really your tone starts to go sharper and you start to get more blunt, right? So is that your default? And I know there'll be times where you don't do either of those and you stay in that beautiful sweet spot of presence and awareness. And what I'm intending to do today is help you find that place more often, especially with those particular people that challenge you or trigger you, or those same situations that challenge you. We all have those people and situations that we go in going, we know how this is going to go. Yeah. And we might not always know that that's going on as an internal narrative. It might be a blind spot for you. And today is about hunting down those blind spots, right? All right. So Nat's, I'm not sure what that's about, but I'm going to leave you sort that out. Thank you. All right. So that's what we're going to think about. What happens for you in conflict? What's your go-to? You're going to reflect on what triggers you into that space. So what are your moments of truth? I'm going to be sharing with you soon, about halfway through today, a process, or like what I'm calling a portal. And it's 5 to 7 steps of what that moment by moment opportunity is for you. So that instead of triggering, right, as I said to you, you'll reflect on your triggers. Instead of triggering into that reaction, you're going to hold space for yourself and stay present, yeah, and then move through and have a much better outcome, like transformational outcome, extraordinary outcome for yourself mostly. And then if others want to pick that up, who are around you as well. Hi, Vicky. And okay, good. Wendy, I think is all good. And so what you'll leave with is understanding how to return to your empowerment. I'm going to share with you about integrity. And one of my strongest values is integrity. So when that's challenged for me, and I find a space where maybe I'm not honoring my integrity or not living up to the integrity I set for myself, then that's a vulnerability, right? That's like, can I be with that? Can I not try and defend or protect it? Can I actually hold space and stay present? And that's what I'll share with you today. And that's what I want you to take away from today as well. So I want you to own your experience and challenge yourself and others in positive ways, such that everyone comes out for the better, yeah, from a place of influence, positive influence. So I hope you've got that. So the think, do, and leave are those three things today. Awesome. All right, so we all good? I think we're all good. Excellent. So recently, in the last couple of months, I was challenged and called out for not initiating a real and brave conversation. And as I shared with you, that's one of the things that I love to do. Actually, I really love difficult conversations. They're where I love to lean in and support and empower and open up new opportunities and new conversations. That's something that I've spent a lot of time studying and practicing. And now I teach others, teach leaders, executive, CEO, C-suite leaders, and also teams from all levels of organizations. And it's something I'm very passionate about. And so recently when I was called out for not leaning into or not initiating a real and brave conversation, that was a challenging moment for me. Yeah. And it was true on this occasion, as I reflected in that conversation later, it was true that I had lent out. And at the time, it was a blind spot, an unconscious behavior for myself, but still true, right? And this was the moment for me where it's, can I lean into this now? Can I lean into this challenge? So when I was called out on it, staying present and staying open, I'd have to say was one of those most challenging moments for me in my development as a person, as a coach. Now I've been doing this work for a long time. And over the last probably 5 or so years, there's been probably 2 or 3 times where for me, this has been challenged, something like this level of challenge. Yeah. So think about for you, when you've had those really significant moments of challenge and where you've gone in those moments. Yeah. So my ego wanted to, fight back and push back and defend and justify and explain, and why I could hear my ego just wanting to be let out of the cage, right? And go for it and explain and have all these great reasonable reasons why I did what I did. And that's our ego. And our ego, as I said to someone recently and say often, is not a bad thing. Our ego keeps us safe, has us take risks, has us go first, which is important in leadership. But if we're not owning our ego can take over and take us into unhealthy patterns. And so in this moment of challenge, my challenge for myself was to stay present, yeah, and not let my ego take over. So have a think about for you when your ego takes over. And I'm not talking about your ego just about wanting to be right. Potentially your ego might be a withdrawal. Yeah, I got to run. I'm out of here. The freeze, the fight, or the flight. Which one are you? I'm out and I'm going to find an excuse to get out of here. So that could be what your ego does for survival. Yes. But there's what I want you to know, no matter how long we've been doing this work, and that's why I admire and acknowledge you for continuing to show up, and the leaders that I coach who lean into this work because it's courageous work, there is always another layer of opportunity for your growth. And for those who might be around you, who act as if they know everything and got it all handled, or they come across like that, they know that they don't. You know that they don't. So it's about allowing space for that struggle. Yeah. So I want you to be looking for, hunting down those new opportunities. And so in the moment, why my ego was being triggered, because underneath that was deep disappointment. Disappointment in myself for not living to the expectation, to not living to the commitment, and to my to the expectation of myself and to the promise that I make others. Yeah. So I'd failed myself. And in my mind, I'd failed living up to those expectations and promises. And that was a tough thing to see. In any moment that we're being with our failure, that can be excruciating, right? And so there was even embarrassment for me. And, I'll tell you why there was these feelings were there in a moment. And when I dug into it, even bordering on, and not deeply, but even bordering on a little bit of shame, being called out on something that I say that I'm great at, right? And that I own, that I have skills in, but on that occasion wasn't demonstrating, wasn't living and breathing. So I wonder if this is resonating for you so far. If it is, pop a comment in the chat box. So I know that I'm not alone, but I'm hoping this is valuable for you so far. So like it or not, my integrity in that moment, and I'll share with you what integrity is around my definition, my integrity was out. And that was something for me to manage. And it was time for me in that moment to lean in, even though everything was screaming inside of me to either push back or, have a reason to leave that conversation. So I'm going to share with you that process in a sec. Yes, I'm not alone. Yes. So I'm so pleased, because that's why we're having this conversation, isn't it? So that hopefully you'll gain something from this conversation for yourself today. Here's the thing about conflict. Our biggest challenge in conflict, this is the two things that I think are, as I was reflecting and preparing for today, we think our biggest challenge about conflict is, we need to avoid it, as in do whatever we can for it not to happen. So, set things up, make sure we're also, manipulating things in a way, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but kind of preparing and planning and making sure everything's taken care of as we move through time, move through projects, move through life, so that we don't have to experience conflict. Yes, and some more than others. There are some people who go looking for it, I understand that. But our biggest challenge, we think, is that we need to avoid it. Are you with me? So just don't go there in the first place, because we've been there before and it doesn't feel good, right? We feel out of control and it can be hurtful and painful. Are you with me? So we appease or we please people, or we ignore or avoid. We stay guarded and protected, kind of like, let's do life, right? Let's put our mask on, let's put our armor on. And part of that is about, I don't want to deal with a difficult or uncomfortable situation. So we spend a lot of energy and invest a lot of ourselves in that game, right? But here's what I want to challenge, that's not the challenge of conflict. The real challenge of conflict is allowing it and then staying present inside of it. That's the real challenge. And the reason we don't do it is because we don't know the benefit of it. And I'm going to show you what the benefit is today. And also we don't know how, right? So we think the biggest challenge is do everything, whatever we can to avoid it, when really the challenge is to allow it and stay present. You guys with me? And the reason we don't is because we don't know how, right? We haven't practiced that. We don't have the skills. And it feels scary, right? It takes courage. And so that's what we're going to be doing today. And so I want you to know when your triggers are going off, it can be a trigger from maybe a long time ago. So when conflict is coming at us, or when we feel like we're on the attack, there can be a disconnect for us inside, like that old story of I don't belong, I'm not enough, I'm not loved, I'm not wanted. Yeah. Whatever your version of I'm not enough is, and as Brené Brown talks about, we all have some version of I'm not enough, and it's a result of an early on disconnection from our true guidance from within, and learning to be guided from what's going on outside of ourselves, from the feedback we're getting outside of ourselves, right? We've talked about that before on previous webinars about where we calibrate to, right? And so that initial reaction is to why we go to sleep or default into a program rather than staying present, is because of that core trigger has gone off and we don't know it. So it sends us into a fight, flight, or freeze. Yeah. All right. You guys with me so far? Andrea says, my husband called me out 2 weeks ago for being kinder to my team than him. Yeah. Okay. Shame then hid under my initial response and disappointment in myself. Okay. So maybe for not being kinder, is that what you mean, Andrea, if I'm reading that correctly? Yeah. And so there's that kind of like shame is, I've worked in shame before in my work in youth justice, around, helping young people come to terms with their actions that hurt others, because there's shame in that. And so restorative shame is extremely helpful to experience and move through, rather than staying stuck in a shame where we judge ourselves and we stay stuck in that, right? So shame can be helpful if we're moving through to restore our integrity, restore our respect with ourselves, restore our relationship with ourselves and others. You're very good. I really appreciate you sharing that, Andrea. Thank you. So I want to talk to you about integrity. All right, so I'm just going to quickly share my screen. I want you to think about integrity. And so integrity is from a Brené Brown perspective, and I love Brené's work. I think there's more elements, and I use a few different thought leaders in my work, but Brené is certainly one of the thought leaders that I refer to in my work. And she says that integrity is choosing to practice our values, right? Practice them in the moment rather than simply profess them, right? So we profess that we have a value of health, and yet we don't act or behave in that way through the week, for example. Now, that's okay, no judgment from me. But when I have a value of integrity, my job, is to live and breathe that, yes? And so if I'm not living and breathing that, that's going to be an area for me to grow if I'm open to it, yeah? And so for me, if you'd like to write down, for me, integrity, and this is a distinction I learned many years ago at the beginning of my transformational work, is being my word. And this could be you saying being your word, right? So being my word, doing what I say, keeping my promises, cleaning up my misses, and doing the right thing, whether anyone's watching or not, right? And so, but the thing is, as human beings, that our integrity, I want you to know, our integrity is a source of our power, right? When your integrity is when you're doing these things, let's say, and you choose obviously what your definition of integrity is, but when we're living out our integrity as a practice, then our empowerment is strong. No one can really challenge us because we own it, right? Doesn't mean we're perfect, but we're owning it and we're cleaning it up when we're not living into it. Yeah. So it's a source of our empowerment. So that's one area, right? That's one thing that's really important. It's a source of our power. The problem with that, though, is that our integrity as a human being, is always going out. If you think about your day or your week, there's promises we make to ourselves that we don't keep. There's promises that we say, yep, I'll get back to you, and we never do. Or we don't get back to you when we say we're going to. There's deadlines that we miss. There's conversations we don't have. So that we say we're going to. Our integrity is always going out as a human being. And that actually is not something for us to judge. It's something for us to be aware of, yeah? That our integrity is always going out. But as we wake up more and more and take more ownership, because this is a really personal journey, right? Our integrity is ours to own. If we're willing to own it and look and see where it's going out without judging ourselves for it and going into over-analysis, then as we put it back in and restore our integrity day by day, and as I said, it's always going out, so it's not like a destination to get to, it's a journey through the day, through the week, through the month, right? Where's my integrity out? Like an opportunity. When we keep putting it in, you'll notice that your empowerment, your ability to hold space for yourself, your willingness to speak your voice all increase. Yeah, and that's a personal journey of personal and self-leadership. You guys with me? Give me a thumbs up if you're with me. So that's the dance with integrity. And it's an honorable dance, I think, in that it takes courage and the willingness to be responsible for ourselves. Yep. And it's willing to be in a game that we almost like we never win. We have little wins along the way, but it's managing that dance in the moment rather than trying to get to a time when our integrity is everything all in and we're perfect, because that's not it, right? Yeah, good. So you're getting it. So that's what integrity is, the source of our power. It's always, the three things I want you to know, is the source of our power, it's always going out, and it's our personal journey. right? It's our personal journey. And so why is it always going out? Because we're busy, we're disorganized, you know, there's lots going on. Our systems aren't always in place. We're human. Everybody needs our time, all of that, right? So the fact that it's always going out is totally okay. But if you notice when you make a promise, think about the last time you made a promise that you didn't keep, whether it was to yourself. Right? Some people made a promise to be on this webinar, maybe they're not, for whatever reason, right? But if we cannot judge it and hold space for it and go, how come is that? There might be a learning in that, there might not be. But then if it's something that you keep promising that then you keep not doing, there's obviously a learning in that if you're willing, because there's a pattern there, a negative pattern. Because what can happen with integrity is if we notice that we keep making a promise to someone or something about, or to ourselves about something, for example, our health. If I promised myself that I would go to the gym 5 times a week, every week, and I consistently don't do that, rather than keep missing my integrity, I might go, I'm going to recommit to 3 times a week because I know that I can do that. That's enough of a stretch and I can own that. You with me? So it's that balance for ourselves around knowing what works. So integrity is something about workability. Please write that word down. It's about workability of life, not about perfection. Okay. So this is an important distinction that I'm sharing with you in depth for the first time on these webinars, because it's time now. It's time for you to start to move into this depth of integrity. Yep. So Vicky says, I've been told I have too much integrity in a review that it intimidates people. I struggle to understand how that's possible and what's a lesson for me in that moment. Beautiful, beautiful, Vicky. And if you're open to me sharing something with you there, I'm wondering if it's because you use it as an opportunity, not knowingly, to judge yourself or others. And you might not be judging others, but certainly when we judge ourselves, it then gets projected onto others if we're not aware. Yep. And maybe because our integrity with ourselves should, if it's feeding back to us that it's intimidating for others, maybe it's something that we're projecting and comparing or measuring unknowingly. Maybe have a think about that. Yeah, so integrity is about workability, not perfection. I think I said, Robin. Yeah, so it's not about being perfect. I want you all to know that this is not what this conversation is about. It's about workability in your life. Yeah, which I think is such an awesome distinction. Because if you start to notice that this is your personal journey and you start putting integrity in, or you clean up your commitments, meaning stop promising yourself you're going to do something 5 times a week or 7 times a week and you're just not doing it. Recommit and set yourself up for empowerment. Recommit to 3 times a week and honor that over a period of time, then stretch into 4 or whatever that version is for you. That's setting yourself up to be empowered. And sometimes that can be scary, right? Because if I'm not a victim, who am I? If I'm not struggling, who am I? Allowing ourselves to take up more space can be frightening as well, yes? All right, very good. Yes, very good, Robin. All right, are we good with integrity? Any questions on integrity? Let me know. I'm going to take a moment just to check my notes. I found that when I think integrity is different to others, that can cause conflict. Yeah. And then that's a conversation, isn't it, Jackie? What a beautiful thing integrity is. It's so good. Workability of life. It's awesome. Yeah. Beautiful sharing. Thank you. And so then here's the thing about that when our integrity is being challenged by someone else. So it's one thing for our integrity, for us to go on this personal journey. As I said, our integrity is ours to own. And then when we're looking for where's my integrity out, and you'll know your integrity is out when you're feeling a bit stuck or disempowered in an area, or you hear yourself saying the same things over and over again about yourself or someone or a situation, that's a clue for your integrity is out. And you go, okay, where's my integrity out here, right? But when someone else outside of you, for example, for me, is challenging my integrity, that's a whole other conversation, isn't it? Because that's a place of vulnerability. It's like they're seeing something in your integrity that was out that you didn't see. For me, that's what happened. It's like, whoa, okay, this is one of those challenging moments for me. Yeah. So there'll be times where you see your integrity out, and there'll be times where other people might challenge you. And it's an opportunity if they do. Yeah. And that's why, and because of those, for me, it was an excruciatingly challenging moment in my solar plexus. My solar plexus was burning with emotion as I held state and space and presence for myself. And I'll share that with you in a moment. But that was where the learning was. All right, you good? You good with the integrity? And so here's the other, I want to just share with you, integrity, it's ours to own. This is yours. It's no one else's. It's ours to own. It's ours to reinstate. It's ours to say if it's out or not. If someone challenges our integrity, then yes, it's an opportunity to look for ourselves, but we get to say if it's out or not. And that's important because this is yours. Yeah. And that allows us to have our own personal power. Yeah. The risk is, and I'll step this process through with you in a second, the risk is if we take someone else's view on as the truth and don't look for ourselves with responsibility to ourselves, that can cause us to trigger and collapse into over apology or overcompensation, or it can cause us to push back, right? So ours to own, ours to reinstate is really important. And it's also ours to judge, right? We get to say what we make commitments to and promises to, where we clean it up and how we do that. All right. So if we can move from a place of being challenged to then re-empowering ourselves, that's a journey that I want to take you through now. And what I'm calling it is going through the eye. It's like through the eye of the needle, because it can kind of feel like that. It's sort of a bit painful. All right. So I'm going to do that with you now. All right. Any questions before I do that? Can I talk about the relationship between integrity and accountability? Great question, Jen. So the way that I use accountability is in accountability conversations, holding ourselves or others accountable to outcomes, results, behaviour that we agreed to, that it's about a conversation. And I'm not saying that that's the only definition, but that's how I use accountability in my work. Accountability to what we've promised as part of something, right? And so this is a great question, because I haven't really considered the distinction. For me, integrity is about a personal journey. Whether I commit to myself or commit to someone else, it's still something that lives within me. It's very personal. My integrity for myself is something that is my journey through life, whereas accountability for me is a more broader conversation. I understand if we can be accountable to ourselves, but it feels to me like it's more like if I would say probably if we're talking about layers, accountability might be here. And then for me, integrity is here. It's kind of the hub, I would say. And maybe that's, an opportunity for another conversation, another webinar. But yeah, accountability is kind of like a broader conversation. Integrity is at the source. I hope that helps. Yeah, but great question. Thank you. All right. So now I want to take you. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Claire says, I like that distinction. Accountability is the collective and integrity is personal. Yeah. And again, play with that. See where that moves and changes for you as well, Claire. Thank you. And thank you, Jen, for that question. Anne says, would integrity be intrinsic accountability? Yeah. Beautiful, Anne. Thank you. Might use that and quote you myself. Very good. All right. So here's the chunk for today that I want to give you. Perfect. So here's the process, right? Here's your step-by-step to move through a moment of challenge and integrity kind of potentially falling out, or you feeling attacked or surprised by someone challenging you on something that's really important to you as a value, or how you might, what you might value in yourself, right? What you've worked hard to, or a lot, or invested time in developing within yourself, as an example, right? So here's the point of challenge. Okay. And then the first point here, where am I? Hang on a second. The first point here is choice. I've got 2 maps here that I'm referring to that I've prepared. So just want to make sure I give you everything in place. So this is about when the challenge is coming at me, in that moment, it's a million, like this is a lot, it does not demonstrate how much time you've got. You've got about this much time, right? Even less before you trigger. Yeah. And so the choice is, am I going to stay present here? Am I going to stay present? Or am I going to default into program? Run away, shut down, push back. Yeah. So there's a choice, and I'm putting it as a moment in time, but all the way through whatever your challenge is. And for me, it was a significant, let's say 1 hour conversation, right? All through that conversation or that experience for you, there's a moment by moment. Am I present? Am I triggering? Okay. But let's say as a first point, that's your first moment of, I've got to make a choice here. Am I staying present, or am I going to go to sleep and play out my program? All right. So that's the first thing. The second, so then there's this next piece here, then is about self-regulation. So that's number 1. 2, this is about self-regulation. Is this working for you, this board? Let me know. And this is, so the self-regulation of our emotions, right? So if we're choosing presence, and so therefore we're staying heart open, body relaxed rather than tense, yeah? And that means we're in the conversation, we're not in our head, because it's easy to go in our head about the conversation, right? About what they're saying. But if we're staying present, then we're in the conversation with that person or people, and we're self-regulating in the moment. We're feeling, this is about feeling our emotions, right? And this is about then what that makes available, questions and listening. This is really important. And this is about space. And I want you to know, inside my conversation I had recently, there was just, for me, a lot of silence and a lot of space. Not silence like resentment, open, present, breathing space between that person and I sharing questions, sharing how we were both feeling, right? And for me, I was just allowing lots and lots of space for me to feel, for me to listen and check in with myself, for me to be curious about myself and the other person, right? So this is really key, because what we usually do is we decide on our strategy and go blah, 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 or, as I said, we run away. Whatever we do kind of quick. Or if we're not saying anything, we're in our head building resentment. Yeah, and neither of those is this. This is about space, right? So space is really important. And this here is about vulnerability, because that excruciating, right? Can be excruciating vulnerability, and fear. And this is about ego as well, because the ego wants to take over. Yeah. So that's about self-regulation. So that's that dance we're in. Can I keep breathing? Can I keep being open? You might vehemently disagree with what's being shared, and that's okay. But can you stay open and present to that experience and that feeling, and not project it, and just be with it and express it and share it at the appropriate times, which you may or may not know at the start, but if you can feel into it, right? So I'll hear your questions as you go through. Too easy to go into our head and try to intellectualize. Totally, Alison, thank you. So that's the second piece, right? So we're making a choice and then we're self-regulating. And then the third piece, it's working, excellent, thank you. The third piece here is about ownership, right? So this is about owning your stuff, owning what's being called out. If it feels like, yes, this is something I can own. And you might not know in the moment if it is or not. It might take reflection later. And certainly I've reflected over that period of time, and there's been other conversations, right? But this piece here is about, can I be with what this person or these people are saying right now in this moment? And the only way that we can do that is if we know in this moment we're bigger and we're more than what happened, right? And if you've worked with me, you'll know that one of my distinctions in holding other people accountable is separating the person from the behavior. So this is the same distinction for ourselves. Can I remember in this moment that I'm more than this failure? I'm more than this disappointment in someone else or myself. I'm bigger than this one experience. Can I remind myself of that in this moment? Because if we can draw back and take a helicopter view and remember how awesome we are, that this is just one moment, that's a way more empowering place for us to be inside this conversation. So it's part of the dance and part of being present with this situation. You guys with me so far? Right, so this is good. So let me make sure I've got everything. So this is about knowing that we're imperfect and it's okay, that we're human, we're imperfect, knowing that, yep, we make mistakes and that's okay. Right. And even though I'm a transformational coach and I've been doing my work for 20 years, you've been doing your work and your expertise for a period of time, and I practice and teach this work, I'm a human being and I'm imperfect. And can I now stretch into that next opportunity of owning that, right? That next layer of owning that. And that's about, yep, okay, I broke my promise. And can I be with that? Can I actually allow myself to be face to face with that without running or hiding, yeah? Or projecting back onto someone else that why, and justifying why I did that, yes? Because there's lots of justifications ready for me to share, by the way. But that wouldn't have helped me. That wouldn't have helped me get to where I am now as far as the growth and empowerment and clarity that I've experienced since then. Now, here's the next piece. This piece here is what this whole piece here is the portal or the process, right? Of the moment of challenge to your power and returning and reconnecting with your power and clarity. Because even if you do trigger as back here or anywhere through, and there are moments all through that one conversation that I did trigger, yeah, and then that's about self-regulation, keep bringing yourself back, okay? So then the next piece here is about reflection. Okay. And so this is when, if we're willing here to keep going through the eye, if we're willing to do that dance and choose and self-regulate and own and remember we're bigger and more in this moment than the mistake, we can tell ourselves that later. That's easy. We can trigger, run away or project and defend, and then 2 days later go, oh, I'm bigger than that, I'm more than that. Yeah, everyone can do that. But can you do it in the moment and stay present? That's leadership. That's the journey, right? And then if you can, and only if you do that work, go away. Only if you do that work, that's when reflection is possible. Because otherwise you're just busy defending, and justifying. And so this is about time and space, giving yourself time and space. And this then is about uncovering the pattern. And this is why we do this, because there's a new pattern here, potentially, right? I'm not saying that every time you get challenged that someone else is right, but for me, this is my experience, uncovering the pattern. What's happening here? Thank you guys for being patient with my... I bet Nat's laughing at me right now. Uncovering the pattern. Right. And so for me, the pattern, I'll share with you, for me, the pattern, what I was starting to see is the distinction between empathy and over-responsibility, right? Which had occurred a long way back. And caring so much that I didn't put in place clear expectations and clear boundaries. Now, I'm all about expectations and boundaries. It's a big piece of my work when I work with leaders and teams, but there's a blind spot for me, right? And so I was able to see my specific pattern because I was doing this work in the moment, right? And so for me, just as an example, it was the distinction between empathy and over-responsibility. And, that's a new distinction for me as far as how they fit together. Yeah. Very good. So let me know, questions so far, or are you getting this? I want to hear your reflections. Take a moment to check in. I've got a couple more pieces I want to give you here, but I'm interested to know if this is helping. Are you getting value from this? What are your reflections? So just take a moment to do that. Thank you, Jackie. Fantastic. What does the header say? Reflection, time, space, or this one is portal, process? Sandra, let me know if that was what you wanted to know. So number 4 is reflection, time and space, and the overarching is portal/process. My husband says I'm always defensive when he provides feedback. Well, sometimes we don't always want feedback from our husband, do we? And so, I'm a big advocate for asking someone, are you open to coaching in this moment? Are you open to feedback right now? Yeah, because we get to say as well, if that's a good moment for us or not. I'm not open to feedback right now, darling, but I might be in 5 or 10 minutes. Give me a moment. Maybe that might help as well. Thank you, Natasha. Thank you for sharing. I'm glad that this is helpful. So Jen says, for me, there's a challenge in reflection and time and space in the moment, yes, versus going away and coming back. But that's okay. So this reflection, for me, it's been a period of a few weeks now where I've reflected and there's been more and more come through, right? And even a couple of days ago, there was another light bulb around this for me. But because, and this is such a great point, Jen, thank you for sharing this. Yes, it absolutely gets easier as you build the muscle. In the moment, it gets easier. At the same time, this portal and this process is for that conversation, but it's also for yourself as you will hold space for this uncovering the pattern to come through. And that might not be, it's unlikely it'll be in the moment. This distinction, empathy versus over responsibility, and other reflections and breakthroughs that have come since that conversation weren't in the moment. But they were available to me because how I kept showing up in that conversation. And even after I got off the phone that day, I went and sat out on the step and just, my whole mind wanted to just run away. I wanted to go and numb some things, use coffee or sugar or something to numb. But if I sat in the sun and the space and just allowed myself to feel and kept doing that, there was emotions and lots of things, as I said, in myself. But that holding space for myself over time then allowed for more breakthroughs to come through. So this portal is not only in the conversation, it's over time as these breakthroughs come through. I hope that helps. Very good. Yeah. The valuable piece for me is to remember that I'm more than this. Yes, that you mentioned, freeing, right? Freeing Elizabeth. And here's the other piece that I think is really key to this, Elizabeth. It's not about convince, and I'm not saying you're saying this, but for me, it's about knowing that no one else might know that. Knowing while I'm being judged or while you're being judged and you connect for yourself that I'm bigger than this moment or bigger than this failure or this mistake, no one else might think that in the moment. It has to be enough that we think that for ourselves. And that can be hard. Our ego wants to prove how we are more than this in the moment, but I did this and I'm this, and right. But if we can know it for ourselves, as I said, integrity is a real personal journey, then that allows the depth of wisdom that comes through and now allows us to be a better coach as well and better leader. So Jackie's got a question. So I hope this doesn't sound like victim mentality. It's okay if it does, but how do you manage a situation where you manage the process, but you're dealing with someone that is either speaking badly to you, aggressive, or gaslighting? Is that, well, yeah. And I think there's lines, thank you, Jackie, for the question. It comes back to that integrity is a personal journey, because certainly my experience, there was compassion, but there was also, I felt some attacking sometime. I'm not saying that was true, but in my experience, at times through the conversation, it felt like that. And that might have been because I was extra sensitive to this topic, or I'm not sure. But so it's the holding space for ourselves has to be enough, and the personal journey. Yeah. And I want you to know that this person for me has been a greatest gift. The breakthrough that I've experienced and the ongoing breakthroughs in the last couple of weeks, such a gift to me. Such a gift. And always, if you've got someone in your life, and we all do, who's that person or people that challenge us or that situation, there's always a gift if we're willing to look, and we don't always see it until it's right in our face. Yes. That's fine about the typos. Yeah. So I hope I answered that. So mostly when people are challenging us, they're triggered too. Don't forget that they've got all their stuff going on, and they're possibly not doing the work. They might be, but they may not be doing the work. So they're bringing all their stuff to you as well. So they're potentially triggered, but you can't control that or change their behavior. So it's often when you're being challenged quite strongly that it's not going to be polite conversation. There's going to be some sort of trigger in there for them, right? So yes, I'm speaking to that. This example is speaking to that. You can do this inside of those moments when someone's coming at you quite like that. I hope that helps. Yes, Sandra, thank you. Would you ask to have this conversation later? For sure. If you don't feel that you can do this work inside of that, or if you might find that you're having this conversation and then you trigger, and you can't come back, you can't resurrect your state of presence, then yes, I would say wrap back around, say, you know what, I'm not being my best self here. I really want to listen to you. I hear that something's not working for you, and it would work for me and for the outcome we're trying to achieve if we're able to wrap back around, because I can feel that I'm really triggered and it's not going to work right now. Yeah, absolutely. But for me in that moment, what was really important, because I've been practicing this work for a long time, is I challenged myself to stay present because I knew there was growth through the other side. Yeah, very good. The last fortnight I've noticed how stressed people are. Yeah, but being able to stay in my power has helped. Beautiful, Jazz. Yes, yes. And when we see all the drama going on around us, which I experienced for myself in that conversation, there was drama and stuff around that conversation, then staying still and creating space and presence in that can be very helpful for ourselves and others. And that's the last point I want to make with you in a moment. So I'm going to keep going because I've only got a few minutes left. I want to give you the rest. So then here's the cleanup, right? Here's the cleanup. Now, what are the conversations you need to have around what's happened with other people, or, are there things that you need to communicate that are just going to put your integrity back in here? And for me, there were other conversations I needed to have around this to reinstate my integrity, to reinstate integrity in the work that I was doing at the time. Yeah, so that was really important. So what's the cleanup here? Okay, and so this is about reinstating integrity in other conversations or relationships or processes, whatever that looks like. And that's going, okay, what else can I see that's missing, that's caused this to happen, or that's fed into this, or that's not supporting integrity in this piece here? Yeah. And then this last piece here, and while I'm doing it as a linear journey, it can be linear, but they kind of can all happen at the same time as well. And then this last piece is about growth. So 6 is growth, right? Your growth, your freedom. This is where true freedom is. This is empowerment. This is clarity. And for me, the clarity that I've had and the freedom and power, wow, right? Like another extraordinary level of transformation for me as a leader, as a woman, as a coach, as a business owner who's interested in big games and big visions and big conversations. Massive. And it means that for me, that this is then wisdom, right? That I integrate in myself, and I can only integrate it, right? That says integrate. I can only integrate it if I do this work, because if I don't do this work, I might gain knowledge, but I don't gain wisdom, and therefore I don't integrate. And so I might have great information about it, but I'm not living and breathing it, and therefore I can't authentically coach around it, or I can't bring that wisdom to someone else and hold space in a deeper way because of what I've experienced, right? So I'm a big one for integration, from going from knowledge to awareness to the being, to capacity, right? So from, some of you have seen this before, some knowledge. Yeah, we all know stuff. Awareness. Yep, we've got some great awareness. Oh yeah, that's my trigger. Doesn't really help in the moment. This is capacity, building our muscle, wisdom, integration. Yeah, we be it. From thinking to doing to being, we become it, right? Our power, our empowerment grows, our energy grows. You guys with me? All right. So here's the thing. I want to give you one last piece. Underneath here, no. Here. I'm just going to write over the top of things. This here is the risk. This is the place of risk, right? And I want you to write this down because I don't have space. Of collapse, over apology, or over apologizing, over compensating. And depending on your profile, communication or behavioral profile, some of you will know what yours is. Some of you may have not done that work yet. That's totally fine. Let's say depending on your personality style, right, or leadership style, you might tend to either over collapse, over compensate, or over apologize. If you have deep empathy, and there's a risk in here of that, which is why this process and this portal is really important. Or defending, protecting, projecting, right, and fighting back and proving why you're right to think the way you do, to have made the decision that you did, right? That's the risk. And if we fall into that risk, like if that's what occurs, then there's no learning or growth on the other side. It's just the same pattern over and over again. We'll just keep doing it. And certainly I've done that many times, right? But I want you to know that that place there is sort of number 3 and 4 mostly, let's say, more so 3 and 4. That's the risk of you defaulting into your own, kind of protection style. All right. Yes, lots to practice. Lisa says, I find myself heading back to convincing or justifying, seeking to be heard. Yeah, and that's that's the pattern running away with us, right? Back to presence, back to breathing. Our access is breathing, as you know, breathing. And so our access to presence is breathing deeper into our heart, into our belly, and knowing that we're bigger than this moment in time. Very good. All right, that's about it. I think I wanted to share with you. How good is that? I hope that was good. I loved putting this session together, and it's been extremely exciting for me to have had this experience, and I love to be able to share it with you. I was ready to share it now. I wouldn't have been ready a couple of weeks ago to share it with you. I'm still in my washing machine process of it, right? But, there's been such, as I said, such a gift for me through this experience, a better person and a better leader and a coach because of it. And I want you to know, no matter how long you've been doing any of this work, there's always another layer. For me, 20 plus years, there's always more, right? So I honor your courage and your willingness to keep showing up. Thank you for allowing me to share this with you. I hope it's been helpful. I would love to hear your key takeaway from today. If you'd like to share it in your chat box, that would be amazing for me to hear what's been valuable. So anything specific that you'd like to share would be awesome. And I'll leave the chat box open for a few minutes after the session for you to do that if you'd like to, because a lot of people kind of hang around and read the comments. So it'd be great to know what's connected for you. Take some time to go through this process and this portal, and know that if you do this work, and when you do this work, what's available through the other side for me has been a level of holding space for myself that's deeper and richer, with much more authentic confidence and clarity, and allowing my energy to be even bigger. So it's exciting. This work is really exciting. When we're willing to do the courageous work, there's so many gifts to us through the other side. So thank you for being here, for showing up for yourselves and for each other and with me. And I look forward to our session next month. And feel free to reach out if you'd like to connect around any of the work that we do, whether that's one-on-one or in groups, in teams, in organizations. Have a great Friday. Thank you for being here. Take care.